Okay, so I'm here with my friend Ian Reclusado, and we read the Scorned Princess from the Franz Xavier von Schonwerth's The Turnip Princess. And I'll go ahead and give a summary and then we'll just talk about it. So, three soldiers are finished with their tour of duty, and they stop in the woods and they make a bonfire to protect themselves from wild animals, and they take turns keeping watch. On the first watch is a miller's son. Now, an old woman came up and she pleaded to let her warm her bones. And he was about to say no, but she offered him a hat that would take him anywhere, a magic hat. He tested it and he saw that it really did do that, and so he gave her what she wanted. Now he warned her, the next guy is gruff, so you better leave when it's his turn. And she left without complaint. Now on the next watch, she reappeared, and the next guy began to threaten her, but she promised him an enchanted horn. She instructed him that you just blow through the small hole, and the world's exiled and homeless soldiers will come out the other end ready to serve you. And if you just blow through the opposite end, they'll go back through. So he let her warm her bones. And then toward morning, he warned her about the next chap who was a shepherd's son, Fortunatus, and he has no manners, so you'd better leave. Now she went right up to Fortunatus, and with a trembling voice, she pleaded for him to let her stay. And he was rude, but when she offered him a magic purse filled with gold that would always replenish, he grabbed the purse and he saw that she told the truth, and he let her warm her bones. The next day, the three were back on the road, and they didn't swap stories. They went to an inn, they ate and drank without knowing who would pay. In the end, the third fellow did, and then they told each other about the marvelous gifts they've been given. So they separate, and with the fellow with the purse emptying it several times for his comrades, making them rich, and the two comrades returned home and they married and they were happy. Fortunatus, however, indulged in life's pleasures. His good looks and his wealth, and the feasts that he did earned him respect everywhere he went. So the king, believing Fortunatus was a prince from elsewhere, invited him to the castle. The king's daughter fell madly in love with him, hoping that he'd ask her father for her hand in marriage. But he was unwilling, which made her all the more lovesick. She wined and dined him, and he revealed his secret and fell into a deep sleep, whereby she replaced the magic purse with a forgery. When he woke up, she confirmed that he didn't want to marry and sent him away. On the road, when his purse emptied and didn't refill, he realized what had happened. His servants left him, and he sold his clothes to survive. He called on the princess, but was turned back and banished. He decided to call on his comrades. He was recognized right away. He was given a bed, clothes, and money. They even gave him the wishing hat that he no longer needed. Fortunatus returned to the princess, who was astonished to see him in his former glory, and was sure that he'd agree to what she wanted. But once again, no, she got him to tell her everything by the same means as before. And when he was asleep, she exchanged the wishing hat, which he soon discovered. Then he was back on the road again. Now he's on foot. And once his money was used up, he visited the second comrade. He was given money and a magic horn, which had never been put to use. Now Fortunatus was filled with thoughts of revenge, and he returned to the king's city. He blew the horn, and an army appeared at his back. They surrounded the city, and he was thinking to blockade and starve everyone. The terrified monarch invited the warlord to parley and dine, and the princess figured out who he was and sat next to him at the banquet. By the same means as before, uh, uh, and he blew his horn to command his army to retreat. She exchanged the horn and confirmed his refusal, and he was condemned to death. He blew the ordinary horn, the replacement, but nothing happened. But the princess, who had not given up hope, let him escape. Once again on the road, poor and almost starving, Fortunatus saw a lush apple tree. He ate one, and a horn sprouted from his forehead. He went back on the road, hungry as ever, and he saw another apple tree. Although he knew the risk, he ate one, and the horn fell off. He gathered some of those apples and the ones from the first tree. He returned to the city where the king ruled, disguised as a fruit peddler. He put the most beautiful apples on display beneath the princess's window. He made a nice piece of change from selling his wares and raced off to buy new clothes so that he would not be recognized. The princess and the chambermaid ate the apples and sprouted a horn each. Now there was no doctor from anywhere that could help. A royal reward was promised, but no one showed up. Fortunatus at last heard what had happened and was overjoyed. He returned to the city disguised as a healing priest. The king tested him on the chambermaid first, whom the quote unquote priest cured with an apple from the second tree. Now the king took him to his daughter, and Fortunatus told the kneeling girl to confess anything on her mind, lest the cure won't work. She told him about the man who had scorned her love several times and how she'd gotten revenge. The priest got from her the purse, the hat, and the horn, and gave her an apple, and a second horn sprouted from her forehead. Quickly he put on the hat and wished himself to the top of a nearby mountain. He blew on the horn and got his army. They attacked, conquered, and burned the city to the ground. The king, daughter, and the court perished. Fortunatus ruled over the entire country as king for a long time.
The end.
Yeah, yeah. So you said, what was your initial reaction to the story? Because we chosen this story because you said you uh, you thought it was all wrong or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's the obvious. Um, this Fortunatus guy is kind of an asshole, right?
Mm,
He's just going around. He's like getting seduced by this princess who clearly has a thing for him multiple times, but he just keeps sort of running away and saying no, and
mm,
then finally is sort of destitute and bereft of all the gifts that were given to him and his crew at the beginning.
mm,
But then at the end, he gets the best of her and burns the city to the ground and kills them both, and then rules as king for a
mm,
long time.
mm,
And it's just it. I'm so used to fairy tales having a happily ever after, and this is very clearly like not a happily ever after.
mm,
So it's just interesting to me, and I saw some parallels with the turnip princess, the last sort of not the last one of these we did, but the first one of these we did,
mm,
first one from the book,
mm,
and just with it starts with an old woman and then there's a princess, and so there's sort of a parallel there, and there's some things I wanted to sort of pick out
mm,
around the different gifts. Not quite sure about the apples and the horns, but then also like the sort of open question for me is, why end it this way? Why end it so violently and tragically?
mm,
Fairy tales usually end in the lovers, the main male and female who have been sort of circling each other. They usually end up together, and in this one, they don't. And so, like, what are we? Are they pointing to something else? is it a warning? I don't know. I have some thoughts, but that was sort of, I thought it would be fun to kind of dive into an atypical fairy tale where they don't end up happily ever after, and see what we could make of it.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was a good choice for that reason. Yeah, I think a lot of the way we approached that titular story, The Turnip Princess, was it seemed to be a lot about like psychology, about kind of the parts of the self and coming to terms and finding your way and kind of having some sort of unison in yourself and a wholeness. And it's almost like a religious thing, like a holiness and everything. Yeah, I think after I read this story initially, I think I texted you and said I was very surprised by the ending. I was kind of expecting like uh her efforts to kind of finally pay off. I mean, it's not like the story paints her as particularly evil or something like that. Um, and then yeah, it seems like I mean one way that I think of this story is unlike the way we talked about the Turnip Princess. I thought of this not as a sort of about development or morality, personal development or about morality or anything. Uh, Even though I initially thought it might be, but yeah, you mentioned Fortunatus is like not a good guy. And yeah, as I was reading the story initially, I thought maybe he would, like his comrades, kind of settle down and be contented. I mean, they are shown in a way to be like relatively decent people. And in fact, they are given these the monkey's paw or the magical hat or whatever you could say. It's like oftentimes in stories like Aladdin's lamp, someone is given a magical uh, object of great power. And of course, it leads to tragedy, right? That so often happens with human beings, right? We get what we want or we get, what we think we want, and then it shows our character that is not developed and, our greediness or whatever comes out and we destroy everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Hmm.
interesting that his comrades are not like that. They're like, yes, of course, like you're my comrade and also you helped me out. I'm gonna help, you are in a state of destitution and I'm gonna help you out. And you know what? Take this magical thing that I could use to do like anything I want to, but I don't need it. It mentions that the second one, the horn, wasn't even used.
Hmm.
And here you go. I don't need it. Like I've no,
Yeah.
no temptation. They're just like they've gotten enough in life and they're contented. They're like the good, decent people. Fortunatus, yeah, as you mentioned, is not satisfied with that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting because oftentimes in fairy tales, that pattern's reversed too. Like you'll have like three brothers and they're all outside of a castle and they're going to go rescue the princess. And the first brother goes in and like gets distracted by the treasure. And the second brother goes in and like, I don't know, gets eaten by a lion or something. And the third brother goes in, avoids the treasure, avoids the lion, and then like finds the princess. And here you have the first one ends up okay. He's pretty happy. Second one ends up okay. Doesn't even need to use the horn. Third one, total bastard.
Yeah,
Takes all
yeah.
the power, kills the princess, kills the king, rules as I assume as a tyrant. I mean, he's very much setting himself up for tyranny,
Mm,
through the use of force and the sort of disregard of other people.
mm,
And he's described as a shepherd's son and has no manners at all.
mm.
Is our sort of introduction to him.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So I don't know, man. I don't. um, Maybe we can kind of go through it bit by bit and see if anything unpacks itself.
Yeah.
Um, so the first bit, like the first thing that comes to the first thing that comes up is they're soldiers and they're finishing their tour of duty and they're on their way home. So these guys aren't. One's a shepherd's son, one's a miller's son, and the other one doesn't even
Yeah, they don't mention the
doesn't even
middle
get a
guy.
title. um, so I'm just sort of wondering. Well, I guess like they've had a rough life. Soldiering is not usually an easy way to make money, especially back in these days. You just hire yourself out and go and kill and potentially die for somebody who's just giving you money. You know, not a lot of I guess there's honor in that, or there's glory if you do well. But if you're just sort of one of the grunts with the sword, like you're
Mm.
putting your life on the line just for some money.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess they've done well enough, and they're going home, and they build this bonfire in the night to protect themselves. So they're kind of like the setting is one of being like it's like an in between space. Like they're in the wilderness. It's at night. They've got a fire of protection on their way home, but they're not home yet. And so, I mean, I guess a lot of fairy tales kind of start off in that sort of liminal space.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And that is maybe the place, the times in life and in our minds when we need the fairy tale to kind of help us know where to go because
Mm,
we might otherwise be confused. And yeah,
yeah,
in their lives too, they're in a transitional time, right? They've stopped one thing, they don't know what the next thing is, so they're just going home. But that's
yeah,
not like necessarily the next thing.
yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. They're not like on to they're returning somewhere. Like
Yeah.
they're moving back in with their parents or
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, that's interesting. Um, so then this old woman shows up. Um, maybe that's a usual thing in Germany in the 1700s that old women just wander out of the woods because it seems to keep happening. Um, but um, I want to see a parallel with the old woman and the turnip princess, where it's some part of themselves that is coming up to ask for care and attention, ask for a place to warm her bones,
Mhm.
partake of. So these soldiers have built a fire to keep themselves warm and safe, and then this woman wanders out of the darkness, unattractive woman, old woman, doesn't stereotypically. You could just tell her to, fuck off and die, old woman. I mean, that's obviously not the kind thing to do, but that's sort of the thing that is set up. You either when you're put into this kind of a position, it shows what kind of person you are. Do you welcome the person in need of aid who doesn't have anything to offer you, and do you take care of them? Are you a genuine, like, good human being, or do you not because there's no obvious thing to take advantage of or to derive pleasure from or to enjoy about her company? Or it's just sort of like, will you be a good person? Is sort of the question I see her posing. Go ahead.
Mm. Yeah, I thought of that, and yeah, that could be the case. I thought a lot of this story is in a way about kind of hospitality or sort of different takes or playings on hospitality. But it's
Hmm.
also, I think the situation though is not just a hospitality situation because it sets it up as like to protect themselves from wild animals. And also this is the first watch. So
Hmm. Hmm.
they have the bonfire and they're one of them is staying watchful. So this is a dangerous situation, and then someone comes in the middle of the night. Yeah, that's very like atypical. And this is also a world where witches and goblins or whatever like exist. So I think it's understandable that they would be very wary of this person. And there's other stories. I don't know if in this culture there's other stories where you invite someone in. I'm thinking of like vampires or something, and then,
Hmm.
that's gives them permission. That may be just for vampires. I think vampires are maybe something else, but anyway, yeah, I think on the one hand there is this sort of hospitality and like taking care of your fellow man type of thing, but I think there's also a very understandable wariness that they would have of her.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point because in the movie in my head, I see it. Like they're in this clearing. This like little old woman kind of stumbles out of the woods and she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, please help me!" But you're right. Like they would all be on edge. They, like, as you said, your point about them keeping watch because it's a dangerous place. Like that's a good point. that's a different that puts a different tone on the scene. And then in the movie, like there's a crack as she steps on a twig. And oh, what's going on? Who's coming out? And then this like woman comes out of the woods, and
Yeah.
you don't know if you should trust her. You don't know if
Yeah,
like
why
you
what
said,
is
there are witches, there are goblins.
that's right. Yeah, what
These
was
are
she
the woods.
doing before that? Like is who's wandering around like fairly late at night,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so to me that sounds yeah, and then of course like any criminal would have like a reason for approaching you. They wouldn't just say, "Hey, I'm about to rob you." Be like, "Excuse me, do you have the time?" Like, okay, or oh, I'm just I'm lost. I was trying to make my way to the train station, blah blah blah, so
hmm Yeah, yeah.
and then
Definitely
yeah, this is a
suspicious.
world with witches, so just because she looks like a harmless old lady doesn't mean she is.
Yeah, yeah.
But I
Um,
do. Oh
Go
yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
please.
No,
Oh,
I was just gonna move on. If you have something to say, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say one theme I thought of this story is so they mention how they're rude to the old lady. So she's asking for hospitality and they're rude to her. So it seems like the story is somewhat within the context of this maybe dangerous situation and also this liminal moment in their lives and in their locale. There is the idea of manners.
Mm,
And it shows that she's asking for good manners. She's asking for, like what the Greeks called xenia, hospitality. It's watched over by Zeus. It's very important in like a dangerous world. Um, and they're rude to her. And they're, the in their world, it's probably safe to assume that being rude to an old person is especially uh, looked down upon.
yeah.
So I thought, yeah, there's this dangerous situation, liminal time, and also manners that's come into play. And manners is something that is like a sign of civilization, is a sign of society, people sort of paying respect to each other. It's people having roles in society and getting along even when they don't know each other well, you know.
Yeah, yeah. That kind of like common decency. That kind
Yeah.
of. Yeah.
But I think it's also like it's like rituals. It's like it shows, manners also show position in society, uh, and roles in society. And so, yeah. What do you make
Yeah,
of their rudeness? Because it's definitely part of the story. All three of them are like not nice to her and are rude and are mentioning that the next guy is going to be like rude and gruff and all that stuff, you know?
yeah. And even like they even say like the warnings from the first guy are like, oh, watch out for the second guy. He's real gruff. And the second guy says, watch out for the third guy. He's even worse than I am. So
Yeah,
it's like it's building to a certain extent. And that's really interesting that they're I hadn't really put my finger on that like each one of them is rude to her. Each one of them, and the only reason she gets to stay is because she's like, well, I'll give you this magical thing. And they're like,
that's right. Yeah, it
let me
becomes an
try it out.
exchange.
And they
Mm.
try it and they're like, okay, all right, you've paid me, so you can warm yourself. Go right ahead.
Mm.
Um, but it does lack that common decency. It does lack like usually in fairy tales you can tell the hero because he has a good heart and he genuinely cares for someone who is suffering or a small animal or something.
Mm.
Usually when you're sort of more transactional like this, it's a bad sign, and maybe
Mm.
that is because it starts out that way. Maybe that's why it ends so badly. I hadn't thought of that. That's pretty
Mm.
cool. That's a nice little mirroring the lack of hospitality at the beginning being the hint that it's going to end in disaster. And and
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
never know when, like, if if they had been hospitable, maybe it wouldn't have ended badly. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, because this isn't a story of model behavior.
Mm.
This isn't trying to teach you how a good person lives. I would hope.
Mm.
I would hope that wasn't the intention of whoever told it, because Otherwise, it's just sort of punish people who piss you off and take what you can from them, and that doesn't
Mm.
seem very healthy.
Mm.
Socially speaking, it doesn't create a
Yeah.
healthy society.
Mm.
Um, but I did want to say a little bit about the three gifts, or the three the three payments
Mm.
that the old woman makes. I found them at first. I thought they were just like, oh, these are just fun little magic tricks. Like they just pick something like, oh, if you had one superpower, what would it be? Oh, I could wish myself anywhere in the world. Oh, I could summon an army whenever I wanted to. But actually, I had this little light bulb moment of that. They're like, it's like fight or flight. They're like nervous system responses, right? So the hat is like the flight response. Obviously, so you're guaranteed safety in the face of danger by being able to run away, and you can run away perfectly. Like you win at running away. You put the hat
Yeah.
on, you're like, I'm gone, and you're gone. There's
Yeah.
no question. Nobody's going to catch you. It's just instantaneous, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the horn. That's sort of a fight response. All of a sudden, you blow the horn, and you can go to war with anybody, and you're going to win. Like you're going to win the fight, and so you don't have to be afraid of danger, because if it gets to a fight, you know how to win.
Mm.
It's almost like a martial arts kind of a thing. Like
Mm.
when you're
Gaining, yeah,
confident
power.
enough.
Mm.
Yeah, when you're
Physical
confident
power.
enough in yourself. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And then the one I didn't get for a while was the gold. Um, so I was like, well, that's just money, right? That's just. But I was thinking about it. I was reading this over again before we started this recording, and it occurred to me that the and I don't expect that. I will have to as a little aside. I will have to say I do not necessarily expect that the people that created these fairy tales were as aware of the nervous system and the responses that it has that we have labeled in these ways. Like, I don't expect it to be like, oh, well, these guys in the woods in Germany in the 1700s knew about the fight or flight or freeze response, and they knew what was going on, and they understood all. Maybe they did on an instinctual level. Maybe they were very wise beings, but wise humans, or maybe it's just part of the creative telling of the story. But this is the pattern that I map onto it. This isn't me necessarily saying that they were 100% aware of this.
Mm.
I think creativity is a little more creative than that. But anyway,
Mm.
so I figured when we go into a freeze response, whether that's like a gazelle, on the plains, or it's us when we're scared, the whole idea of that is our body is freezing us to contain our resources so that we have the resources to take action when we need to.
Mm.
So there's this video that they show in a lot of the somatic training modalities of like an antelope is taken down by a lion, and the lion like knocks it down, and the antelope goes into freeze and just falls over.
Mm.
And the lion's like sniffing at it and pulling at it, and you can tell the lion's like eventually going to eat it. And then this hyena comes along and like chases, and then like gets into a tussle with the lion
Mm.
and chases the lion off. And then the hyena's like gnawing at the antelope, and the antelope's still just laying there. And then the lion starts sniffing around back, and the hyena like turns and like chases the lion off, and is standing off in the corner of the screen, kind of off to the side, like growling off at the lion.
Mm.
And you see on the other side the antelope like jump up and run off.
Wow.
So the story that you get from that is that the freeze response is one of the body, the mind of the antelope freezing it, so then it has the physical resources to jump up and run away once it feels safe enough to do so. Because if it had jumped up and run away, the lion would have caught it, or the hyena would have caught it, and it would
Mm.
have wasted all those. So if it had like one more get up and run left in it, the freeze response keeps that resource safe until there's a chance to actually use it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that
so
makes sense.
gold is a resource. If you
Mm.
feel like you have as much gold as you need, you can take a lot of chances. You don't really have to freeze up. You can be like, okay, well, I got thrown in jail for this, but I got like infinite gold. So how much is it going to take to bribe you to let me out of here, guy? Or like, is there a fine? Can I just pay a fine? Like, can I dedicate some public works? What can I do? Money gets us out of a lot of things that otherwise would kind of keep us stuck. So I think there's sort of a mapping of each of these onto, or at least it's just it's a fun comparison to play with. I don't know
Yeah.
necessarily that it's a strong thing, but they are all gifts. Like these instinctive responses that we carry are gifts from our ancestors. They're gifts from our genetic ancestors, meaning like back when we were had a before we split kinship with like wolves and stuff like that. When we back like early mammals, a lot of these, or even earlier than that, come from that time period. And so for the old woman to come out and sort of give them to each of these men is sort of like something ancestral coming up. It's a recognizing of these ancestral gifts and sort of a mastering of them, or a familiarizing ourselves with them such that we're able to use them very well.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
I
like
just see
that.
them as gifts in that way, you know?
Definitely, yeah, they're in a general way, they're for basic things that you need to survive. Although interestingly, the money also helps you to survive socially, as it shows that he gains respect by
Mm,
them. Uh, and and yeah, it's the way you portrayed them as gifts from our ancestors that make adds a layer to the opening scene where it's like you're in a very primitive environment where you're outside. You're not necessarily safe. You're on a journey. You've built a fire. There's the woods and the darkness outside, and something emerges out of the darkness. So, out of the mind or the experience or something, you gain a gift of something that helps you to survive in a primitive way. Like you learn to fight more, or you learn to run better, or to your senses are learn to deal with all the all the dangerous things that are out there physically or psychologically, which I think can maybe be a key to kind of understanding the the rest of the story. So yeah, I
mm,
like that painting of the those gifts.
yeah, I like your description of the old woman coming out into the circle of light from the darkness. Like that's, I think, often how, unconscious material comes up. It just
Yeah.
presents itself unexpectedly in
Yeah,
our
it's
system and in our
almost
lives.
chilling, like how interesting that is, I don't know. So
Yeah, it's
it'd be cool to like try to compare that to like the cave or something, and like mixing it up with the turnip princess of like instead of the people appearing to the immature boy when he, wakes himself up, it's more like a more mature person maybe, which it seems like these soldiers maybe are they're further along in life. They've had experience out in the world. It's like they're awake to see the people coming out of the cave, and there's, you can have like a cool movie scene about that or something.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, I love that. I love that comparison of the circle of the firelight in the primitive, in the dark woods and the unknown, and the cave, also in the woods, coincidentally, I guess. But the cave from the Fraternal Princess, where the
Yeah.
change happens for the immature youth. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. It's sort of the same liminal space
Yeah. Yeah.
with the like you had said, like you don't know how far back the cave goes, and the same
Yeah.
thing when you're around the fire, you don't know what's out in the dark and
Yeah.
what might come out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's infinite kind of darkness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Infinite mystery, I meant to say.
yeah. But yeah. So then, Fortunatus, which is, you know, I assume that means the lucky one. I'm not necessarily up on my Latin,
I
if that's
looked it
Latin.
up, and yeah, apparently, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's the only one that's named, I think, right? Yeah, he's the
For,
only one of the whole story that's named, which it that sticks out.
it does. It does. And it's odd because he's like, as I have said and will keep saying, he's kind of a jerk. He's
Mm,
not kind of a jerk. He's quite a gruff man,
mm.
and not to be trusted. But he's also very outwardly successful. He's very good looking, and I assume since he's able to throw parties, um, relatively good to be around.
Mm,
Charming to a certain
mm.
extent.
Yeah. Yeah, they wouldn't have respected him, I think, if he just threw parties, but was obvious that this was some kind of just transactional thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there had to
Mm-hmm.
be some reason that I thought it was interesting that it mentioned he was respected. So he's also a veteran, so he has some kind of character, some kind of strength maybe behind that.
Mm, yeah, that's true. That's true. Um,
He doesn't seem, he's not like a playboy that everybody will eat at the table of, but like disrespect behind their backs.
Right. Yeah, no, he definitely has that like he seems to have that like center of the party, like everybody would sort of look up to him kind of a thing because he keeps doing it and he keeps doing it really well. Um, and yeah, I mean, you've already touched on the fact that his two friends just return home, get married, and we're rich and happy. And they're rich and happy from the money that he gave them. I guess they invested with it well or something.
Mm.
And so they don't really have a need for running away or getting into a fight. Like they're just sort of like, hey, this is good. Everything's great. I have the gold I need. I can do things with it. I can create whatever kind of situation I need to, generate and protect myself and have a house over my head and get married and live happily ever after. So
Mm.
those two get to live happily ever after, which again is sort of the fairy tale turned on its head. That the two lesser brothers or the two less important characters are the ones that end up doing well.
Yeah.
Um, then what do you think of this princess? I'm very much on the fence about her.
Uh, I would characterize her as, yeah, lustful. Like I'm not talking about
Mm.
sexually really,
Mhm.
but more like she has her eye on something, whether it be the apples at the end of the story or the one that got away, the one that she just can't have. And she won't take no for an answer, and that
Mm.
makes sense. She's a royal. No one
Mm.
says no to her. No one has said no to her.
Mm.
I'm assuming. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
she has gone her life getting everything she wants. Now she wants the thing in the story mentions, because he uh, refuses her advance, she wants him all the more, which is, very characteristic of, yeah, greed. Is it desire without wisdom, I guess.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, yeah. I can see what you mean. That's sort of like the pull that that kind of thing can have if you don't know how destructive it can be. That's which
Yeah.
it does end up being. So that is also interesting. Um, hmm. Because yeah, I'm like on the one hand, I'm of a mind with you of like she really kind of I don't want to say she brings it on herself because she doesn't bring it on herself directly, but she does keep going back to the guy, and the guy's clearly not like he's not interested,
Yeah.
and I don't know like I don't know if that's her fault for going back to him or if we take a more like archetypal view of it. This is sort of my other perspective on it of like if you remember the turnip princess, like the old woman in the turnip princess was the beautiful woman that the prince was looking for, was the sort of matched part of his the missing part of his soul that he was sort of on the search for.
Mm.
And so the parts of our soul will they're very patient, they'll wait for us, but we have to actively be in pursuit of them or trying to figure out what's keeping us from this part of ourselves. Like we have to be engaged in the process,
Mm.
otherwise maybe they do get irritated with us. But he seems to, he goes to the palace. He King's daughter fell madly in love with him, but he was unwilling, and that made her all the more lovesick. So you're right, there's kind of a covetousness on her part. And it says she
Yeah.
was sure he was harboring some kind of dark secret, and she tried to figure out why he was so completely indifferent to her. So like if we look at it from a soul perspective, like yes, the soul wants to figure out why we're indifferent. Like that's sort of the seeing her in the positive light. But assuming that he had some kind of a dark secret, it's odd that it never really explains why he's unwilling. I mean, I guess if he's just happy being super rich and throwing parties all the time and doesn't want to get tied down by a princess, like okay, but
I think that's part of it.
yeah, yeah, huh. But see, but that's the thing. So here's yeah. So I just realized something. One of the reasons I'm thinking of the comparison with the Turnip Princess is in the Turnip Princess, you had the old woman who was actually the young woman, and it was sort of the mirroring represented. And here you have an old woman who gives gifts, and then you have a young woman who takes them away when you don't give her what she wants, you know.
Nice. I
And
didn't see that parallel.
thanks. And if it is, you know, if at the beginning the woman was like, "Give me hospitality," and they're like, "Nah, I don't know. We're going to chase you up. Oh, you've got this thing for us? Okay, you can have some hospitality." So there's this approach between the characters and you know whatever this the old woman and the prince, if they are the same, you know, if they are mirrors of the same psychological pieces, there's an approach then, and there's an exchange of gifts and hospitality, and then later here you have the princess and the king kind of in the center of their world, and you have Fortunatus coming in as the outsider, and he's welcomed in, and he's invited to stay. He's invited to marry the princess and sort of inhabit this kingdom, and he says no. So it's, to my mind, in that case, it's like a it's a refusal of hospitality as well, or it's like it's the other pull, like the magnetic pull of the relationship, where the old woman comes into the group of men, and then the man comes into, you know, Fortunatus comes into the kingdom where the princess is, and the sort of the transaction happened relatively correctly in the first place, in that the woman got warned and the men got the magical gifts, so everybody kind of ended up with something nice. And here in the end, you know, in the second part, he's not, he's saying no, and you know when he says no, he loses his gold, he loses his magic that he has. And so rather than like going and making peace with the princess, he goes back to his friend, whichever one it was, um, and he gets the hat. He gets taken care of. So he gets like, he's invested his money well, such that when it's gone, he's got a friend he can go to who will take care of him. So there's a secondary resource he can draw from. And and his friend's fine, doesn't need the hat, so gives him the hat. And then he takes the hat and he goes back to the princess. And she recognizes him. She was surprised to see him back in his former glory and was sure he would now agree to what she wanted. But once again, she was wrong. Doesn't say why. Using the same means as before, she got him to tell her everything. So he's like, that's the thing, is like, he keeps going to this princess. She keeps being able to convince him to tell her all of his secrets. And so there must be some fondness of his towards her. Otherwise, I mean, why would he sort I mean, why would he open up to her? Why would he trust her with his secrets a second time and a third time? You know, it seems strange. Like, it seems, I don't know, to me it seems like he does have feelings for her, but he doesn't want to admit them.
Hmm.
But I don't know if that's the only way to look at it, you know.
Hmm.
I don't know. I've been talking a lot. You got anything to say to all that?
Well, one thing, you mentioned how there's kind of a parallel between the situation and the character of the old woman at the beginning and the princess later on. But I think one big difference is that the old woman is not invited. She asks to be invited, and she gives a
Mm,
reason that she should be trying to. You could sort of see it as an emotional plea, like, let me warm my bones by the fire, but not giving them a reason why she's wandering around there or why they should trust her.
mm,
And that seems to be supported by later on. The story mentions how she's pleading with them. She's always using emotions to try to kind of get them to do things.
Hmm.
But the excuse me, Fortunatus, getting my stories mixed up.
Yeah.
Fortunatus, like when he goes to the city, he is invited by the king, and there's also an identity thing, which I think might be interesting to go into. He like has different like costumes and like different roles or different professions that he acts like. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
the king who believed that Fortunatus was a prince from another kingdom invited him to the castle. So I mean, he is to me, he is totally a guest there, and then
Hmm.
she wants to marry him. He and you know, understandably so. He's kind of this like big man of the world, kind of throwing feasts everywhere, respected by everyone, even wanted by her own father, the king. So if someone is wanted by someone really powerful or high up, in a way, they're like even better than that person, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
psychologically, you know, it seems that way. That's how like con artists, I think, try to kind of wend their way into people's lives and stuff. But but yeah, but then he refuses, and I think he doesn't. I mean, I think he goes back because he's his sense of justice, or you know, he's just not going to be taken advantage of by this princess, and eventually he does kind of get his revenge, and so that's why I kind of think the story is possibly about respect.
Yeah.
So not,
And
not.
in fact, she, so, she takes the thing with the gold coins and gives him the fake one. And he goes out and he realizes it's fake. And he goes back and calls on the princess, but is turned away and then banned from the city.
Mm,
So there is kind of a like a selfishness on the princess's part, and there is a what did you just say? A lack of respect of like, if you're not going to give me what I want, you can't even come here. Only then he goes, meets his friend, gets the wishing hat, gets a bunch of money, goes back. The princess is astonished to see him back in his former glory and was sure he would now agree to what she wanted. So she invites him back in when he's doing real well, but when he
yeah,
comes back and is like, "Hey, can I get my gold back?" and he doesn't have the service, he doesn't have the clothes, he's banned from the city.
yeah,
So
yeah. And
it is interesting. Yeah.
does that not seem like just going away from a psychological, like this is one person type of explanation to this is about this particular type of relationship where there's the really privileged princess type girl, princess or not, and has been spurned, you know, and damn it, you know, if I can't, you know, if you don't want me, then she's going to try to put the guy down. You know, to me,
Yeah.
that pattern it definitely happens in relationships between men and women where, uh, yes, you know, how would you say this? Like, yeah, she takes it as more than a slight that he doesn't want her, and she's gonna make him pay.
It's interesting because I see that. I know that from real life. I've seen that happen. And it does it does show that. But putting it under the like the psychological interpretation, there is a part of us that, are, if we are split in a certain way, the part that we are split from does want to rejoin with us. It does want to, and it is in our best interests to work with it in a way that that it's no longer, this part of ourself is no longer exiled. It's brought back into the community of our subconscious or whatever,
Hmm.
and it's able to interact with us on a better level. And when we, if we were to go close to it and then say no, you can't, like, the part would get angry, and it would be right to be angry because we're sort of playing with it. We're like, yeah, I can get in touch with my feelings, but not right now. No, I don't actually want them around. I don't want to suffer for them. I just want to have them around when I want them.
Mm.
And that works for me as far as the psychological perspective of like the motivation behind the princess's behavior. except except that when he comes back poor, she's like, no. And then when he comes back rich, she's like, oh yes, you can come in. So there's definitely something a little suspicious on the princess's part as far as her behavior here,
Mm.
because she only seems interested when he shows up, rich playboy, big man of the
Yeah,
world
when he
kind of a
looks
thing,
good,
like you were saying. Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah,
he's
yeah,
attractive.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, and but then if we want to look at it as like he's coming back to get revenge, he's coming back. Like, why does he go back? He goes back and he falls for the same trick 3 times, and like, I just can't. I can't see the princess being that wily, and I can't see him being that dumb. So I don't really understand how to take that.
It is notable. Yeah, falls for
It's
the
very
same trick.
Yeah, she's using the same means as before. It literally says she got him to tell her everything, and then when he was asleep, I mean, I guess maybe they're implying they're sleeping together,
I wondered about that. Yeah, I don't know.
because like, stereotypically guys will spill their secrets during and after sex, and then he falls
Mm.
asleep, and then when he's asleep, she takes.
Yeah.
So but there is, if that is the case, then there is this case for this playboy guy coming in, hooking up with the princess, and then being like, yeah, but I don't really want to marry you, I'm not that interested, and then a woman scorned is
Yeah, I wondered
nothing
about
to
that
mess around
too.
with,
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I
yeah.
thought from the first or the second encounter, the language did not seem to show that there was like sex, but yeah, we're not from that culture. There's maybe when there's a lot less explicitness, there's more understanding of the subtleties of language, and we're reading a translation. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But
that's
either
true, that's
way,
true.
that would also that would be a great temptation that would help explain why he keeps coming back. But even without that, I think with the feasting is something that's a part of his character in this story. It's something that he's doing before he ever meets her. So he has a strong predilection for it. Also, there is the idea of she's he's getting wine, which obviously, makes you much more pliable, and food too. And when people get food in a story, as in this story with the apples too, like things change. So they're
Mm,
consuming something and they're not the same necessarily after that. So I thought maybe, yeah. Yeah, just
yeah,
looking at
yeah,
it as a feast itself, it seems like he would like kind of catch on after the first or the second time. Yeah, he doesn't seem otherwise like a dummy, but yeah. But I
yeah,
think
like,
maybe that's kind of it. Like
yeah,
he seems to have a weakness for it.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a good point, that the feasting was something he had been doing all along, and sort of something that he's probably used to, and something that he sort of would go unconscious during. Um, I wanted to say something like, he was suspicious of the princess, but in the joy of the feast, and she convinced him not to be worried, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. You
But
you know you get caught up. There's a lot of people there. Stories are told, and yeah, yeah,
yeah,
drinking, and it goes on into the night. So
yep, yep. Um, and then he goes and he gets the horn, and once he has the horn, he is filled with thoughts of revenge, and he goes and he's about to take over the city, um, when he is invited to come and dine, and he accepts. And the princess had no trouble figuring out who he was. She sat at his side during the banquet, and once again she used her craft to extract from him what she wanted. He succumbed to her seductions, but then blew into his horn to command his army to retreat. So she convinces him. So he this time he's upset. He shows up angry, and he enters as sort of the conqueror, not not as an invitation. He's coming just of his own,
mhm.
on his own power. But she still manages to find out what his deal is, seduce him, and he's like, okay, okay, I'll call the army off. So he makes the decision to call the army. So he gives away his power in that sense, in that moment.
Hmm.
Um, and then during the night, she exchanged the magical horn for an ordinary one. And when he refused to propose, he was condemned to death. So like the first time she sends him away and he's banned from the city. Um, Second time it doesn't really say much of anything, but then the third time he's sentenced to death. So this is like the more serious result of his rejection of the princess. It's like it's no longer like, um, well, go away, we don't want you around. It's like, no, we're gonna kill you this time. Like you can't keep doing this. You can't storm our city and threaten it, and then we make peace with you and refuse the princess. I mean, I guess you could do that, but it is kind of, well, I guess when the young man refused to propose, he was condemned to death by the king. So the king is, that's kind of, I guess this is just sort of a little crack in the fairy tale, but like, the king condemns him to death before the king finds out that the horn doesn't work. Oh, maybe the daughter told, maybe the princess tells the king or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't have to analyze, and I don't get that too deep in the weeds there. But it is interesting that he's condemned to death, blows the horn to save himself from being condemned to death, but then finds out that it doesn't work. So he definitely gets, he gets kind of one pulled over on him yet again.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's how I took that part.
and then the princess lets him escape undetected. She had not given up hope and helps him to escape. So there's definitely like a trauma bond between these two.
Mm.
Like he can't stay away from her, but won't marry her, and she really wants him to marry her, and will pretty much is just convinced that he's going to if she just asks him enough times, takes care of him enough. Like there's definitely,
Yeah.
I don't, maybe not a trauma bond, maybe it's just sort of standard codependency, but there's definitely some kind of a like, what's the some kind of attachment thing going on here. The like
Mm.
he'll get close to her, but not too close, and she desperately needs him to want her.
Mm.
So I get that's like the avoidant attachment and anxious attachment, like pair bonding kind of a thing.
What about that being another example of her hubris?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, she's definitely very certain that she's going to get what she wants, and she just has to trick him enough times and take
Yeah.
away his the powers and things.
And he's shown that he can threaten her whole city, and yet she's still thinking about it like on a personal level, what she wants, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. I'm taking it you're not a fan of the princess,
Well, I mean,
or at least that's
yeah,
one
but I'm not a
perspective.
fan of any of the people. I'm just kind of I think of it as like a good way. I sort of think at least now of this story as like a lesson about kind of respect and being careful
Hmm.
about what you do, how you do it, who you offend, and all that stuff. And I think of the princess, yeah, as a good example of like, yeah, kind of the entitled, uh, kind of privileged person, not having learned from experience, not knowing their limits, and kind of paying the price for that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. I'm
The
thinking of how so.
story is called The Scorned Princess. It's not the title seems to indicate she's the main character in a way. And I think of Fortunatus as like as opposed to his comrades, he doesn't settle down. He kind of roams around. He's kind of like at least a vagabond, but then he's always having feasts. To me, he's almost like a trickster type character who kind of yeah, well, trickster, I think, causes chaos just for the joy of chaos, but he more like brings a kind of justice to, so he's always like feasting with people, gaining their respect and things. But then when she invites him in and then doesn't treat him like a guest, or her father invites him in, but they don't treat him like a guest, and they try to change his life, they try to possess him or whatever. There could be something about how he's like a creature of the outside society. He only has these feasts, which almost could be like a devil's kind of bordello kind of thing that he brings to the world or something.
Hmm.
But either way, like they invite him into the city, or they invite him into the castle and then try to get what they want, try to change him in some way. And he shows them he doesn't want it. But then they try to take his stuff, which to me is like, that's kind of that. There's nothing worse maybe of a guest than to like steal their valuable possessions, to try to make them when they and to try to make them do what you want, but then and then also to condemn you to death. That's like treating a guest pretty badly.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So I just thought,
Hmm.
yeah, it's kind of maybe the story is like a lesson of what happens when you're not careful and respectful, when you don't know about powerful forces in the world, and you think you have hubris and you think you do. So that's I think a good yeah, and a monarch or a leader or someone with privilege, as opposed to the other two comrades who are kind of, they get rich enough and they get their piece of land or whatever, and they're content with life, as opposed to someone like that, someone who's presumably has everything. They have the control of the kingdom, but they just can't let it rest. And I'm sure you know, she's mystified as to why he doesn't want her. She is either extremely unself-aware, or she's presumably attractive in some way and could have her pick of the princes of the land or whatever, but she has to have that one. So to me, it's, yeah, like you mentioned, covetous, that word appeared to me as well,
Hmm.
about
Hmm.
in terms of her character trait.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Oh, I like that. I like that idea of it, of her, being the main character, even though she's not named, and she feels like a side character, but a lot of the action of the story is decided on her, or is based on her decisions. Like it pivots
Yeah,
on what
yeah,
she wants or what she's trying to do. Because
yeah,
Fortunatus is not a very active character, actually. He
yeah,
just
yeah,
he just takes the gold and he has parties, and
yeah,
he's not active until later on when
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he's
he's just kind of
wanting
doing,
revenge. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah. So then we get to the part with the apples. Um, and the horn. Everybody really hates these horns. They must be really horrible. They're definitely described as like their presence in the story are disease or
mhm,
you know scarring or something, something really really bad.
yeah,
Um, but
yeah. Maybe makes you look evil in a Christian society. Anyway, it is like a mark that makes you very unattractive and is just weird.
yeah, yeah, and I can't. Here we are, another just like the turnip. I don't know what to make of the apples, um, other than that they're attractive things that when you eat them, they cause problems. And definitely, I think when this story was told, that Christianity was enough of a presence that the apple in the Garden of Eden link isn't impossible. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some sort of a cultural understanding there
Mm,
of the apple, eating the apple as being giving into temptation. And
mm.
but then he eats another apple and the horn falls off. So that's not any kind of a repentance or salvation moment. It's
Yeah.
just you're just eating different apples.
Yeah.
Um, um, and it's sort of the universe or the cosmos of the story giving him a weapon. It's giving the reality gives him something to get his revenge, and he takes advantage of it.
Mm.
Um, and he returns to the city disguised as a fruit peddler. So yeah, what were you? I don't know if you had anything to say about the disguises or about the apples or about anything else. You had sort of said the disguises were interesting to you, so we sort of on the first one here.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, about the apples, yeah, I was a little mystified by that. You mentioned that maybe connection with the Garden of Eden. There's obviously two trees in the garden, one that gives you what? Knowledge, and one that gives you life, one that gives you
right.
immortality. Knowledge of good and evil, I guess, right? So one that
Yeah.
gives you sort of morality and one that gives you life. Uh,
Hmm.
but on a more general level, I thought of the trees as like providence. So it's what God provides for you. And it does seem like it's what is provided for him. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why, but it does seem like he's always provided for in this story.
But
The
he is
old woman.
Fortunatus.
Right, exactly. And I think that's part of the key to understanding his character that, yeah, he's just lucky in a way. And like, there are some things in life where, like, be careful, like, don't mess with it. And that's part of what respect is about, is you don't know what's out there. You don't know who you're facing. Like, you may underestimate this person and you find that they hold the key to your redemption or your destruction. That's a very dramatic way of putting it, but that's kind of the extreme case of why you respect other people and circumstances.
Mm.
And when people are very much provided for from birth, like a monarch would be, you often maybe don't have that. You have the hubris, which in the classic formation from Herodotus and before that, like hubris leads to nemesis, the arrogance leads to destruction. The
Mm.
whether it's the Persians against the Greeks or this princess who is smitten with this kind of, I don't know yeah, this very lucky, strange,
Yeah.
powerful guy.
Yeah. 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 Lucky guy. This big shot. Um. Yeah. I don't.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, and about the disguises, I didn't think much about it, but it just seems like why, that's part of his wiliness. He can change guises and things, and that's also, along with other things in the story, make him seem a little demonic to me. So,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. 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 Because he's definitely. I mean, he's like like we said, he's described as like the gruffest of the three.
yeah.
And there's definitely sort of a I don't know gruffness, demonic, fortunate in the world.
Yeah,
Um.
lives
eh,
outside of society. Like
yeah.
he won't settle, he won't, yeah. He's
Constantly
among
wandering.
people feasting, but he's not really with them. He's not of them or something like that. I don't think we can totally say he's a supernatural character or anything like that, but he has like the flavor of a demonic person.
Yeah. That kind of like creepy magic. And I mean, who the idea of infinite gold, of being able to just spend money, is definitely something that is attached to demonic figures and trickster figures, and the fairies that spend the gold and the next morning it's just leaves,
Yes, definitely.
stones and pebbles. So there's definitely something, some odd resonance, some echoing going on there. um yeah. And again, the princess is taken in by her covetousness. She wants the apples, determined to buy some no matter what they cost. And so he, in
Yeah.
disguise, sells them for a nice piece of change and runs off to buy a new disguise so that he would not be recognized, for the second part of his evil plan. Um, and the princess, eats these very expensive apples with her chambermaid, and they both spread out horns. And I'm sure the chambermaid is just there so they can have the dramatic pause of like, oh, is this priest doctor going to work? Is this cure going to work? Um, and no one shows up. A royal reward for the person who could find a remedy. No one shows up.
Yeah, I
It's not
noticed
like
that too.
everybody showed up and tries. Like nobody wants to save the princess. So that is another hint of maybe her non her non-idealness or her
Okay,
covetousness or
yeah.
her
Yeah,
problematic
because a
nature.
reward was offered, right? You would think they would.
Yeah, you think somebody would want to try, but no one shows up. Nope,
Yeah,
just doesn't happen.
yeah.
Um, and the news reaches Fortunatus at last, and he is overjoyed that his trick has worked. So he goes back as sort of a healer priest, and this time he gets the princess to confess. So this time he pulls sort of the a different kind of seduction. He pulls the like, tell me all your secrets, and she does, and he convinces her to let's see, confess anything that was on her conscience. Otherwise, he would not have the power to cure her. And so she tells him about the man who had scorned her love and how she had found revenge. The priest convinces her to give him everything that she had stolen, and she does. And then he gives her the apple, and it's the wrong apple, and she sprouts a second horn. Uh, so yeah, this princess just gets herself in more and more trouble. Um, and now that he has all of his powers back from the princess, he destroys everything and becomes the king. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed in my mind from a story of because when I was first looking at it, I was thinking of it as the princess just being the scorned part of the psyche and it being a warning of like if you continue to scorn your psyche to the point where like you have to go in and completely destroy it, you end up looking like this guy who's a real dick, you know. But there is some you've brought up some good questions about the princess's behavior, and she's definitely not a model princess. She's got some covetousness, she's got some um, hubris, like you said, and it does make me wonder, you know, um, even from the psychological perspective, because if you take the psychological perspective to its end, then the princess is a reflection of Fortunatus, of a part of him. And so if he is this rough, gruff, rude guy, some part of him that is lost may also have some rough, gruff characteristics in a different regard. And just it's like the two can't meet due to these personal flaws on both sides. And it does sort of lead to a bit of ruin. Although Fortunatus ends up ruling over the entire country for a long time as king. So I guess it's not that bad for him,
Mm.
but he could have ruled over as king if he married the princess. So like,
Yeah, he's not. Mm.
yeah,
I think
I
he's
don't know.
not necessarily happy. I mean, he just gains the realm, right? I think
Hmm.
it seems clear that his comrades who settled for much, much more humbler circumstances are happy. And if you contrast him, I mean, yes, he's a ruler. You mentioned he could be a tyrant or something like that. He might not be beloved or respected anymore. I mean, he's destroyed, he's conquered,
Hmm.
he's feared, but he wouldn't necessarily be loved.
Right.
So
And
I
that's
don't
that
know.
actually brings up your earlier comparison with like the monkey's paw and the Aladdin thing of like Fortunatus is the one that continues to use the magic. And then when one of them gets taken away, he goes and gets the other magic and so he sort of just triples down on like, no, I'm not going to just be a normal human being. Like I get to use these magical powers and the sort of destructiveness that brings.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
brings a
Yeah.
lot of suffering for him. Many times he's destitute, many several times, three times. It brings a lot of suffering for him. And
Yeah.
ultimately, yes, he gets to rule over a kingdom. But is it like Stalin, where he's like suspecting everybody of like plotting behind his back or whatever? I mean, well, he ruled for a long time, yes, but yeah, is he happy? To
Yeah.
me, that's a big question. And if I had to guess, I would say not necessarily.
I think I would agree with you. Yeah, because he's such a he's driven by vengeance. He's anger and vengeance and destruction, and that usually doesn't doesn't lead to good ends for the people who follow it, even if they end up on top. Like you
Yeah,
said, like
yeah.
Stalin. I mean, that's a great comparison. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
yeah,
thought that was a good ending to the story because yeah, it's not a triumph for him in the end. It's a kind of, yeah, it's a cautionary tale.
yeah,
You could have
yeah.
ended your story just when you got some providence and like you go back home and you have a life and you're with family and you're good, you're happy. And then
Hmm.
your wayward friend comes back and you're generous enough to help him and the lack of want that you have shown in your life by not even using this gift of like extreme power that you have. Like it was just sitting on a shelf somewhere or whatever. Like, yeah, I could have used it, but never got around to it. I mean,
Yeah,
just to me, it shows that they're balanced and happy. But,
yeah.
Fortunatus, he needs to get all of life's pleasures, which isn't to say he wants to live a happy life. He wants to indulge in life's pleasures, roaming around, getting respect, mingling with kings and queens, and yeah, he does triumph physically in the end, but he doesn't necessarily. He does get. Would you say he gets glory? I don't know, but some type of glory in a way by
I mean,
by
he, he
taking
he
over.
he's the king of the kingdom. Like, there's
Mm.
definitely some sort of a whether it's he's glorified or not. Like, he's in a glorified position for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
right.
that's not really questionable. Um, but yeah, your point about him wandering around and continuing to throw parties and meet with all these people, like and rather than sort of just settling for a decent human life at home with family and all that, there's a covetousness on his part there too. Just sort of a continual seeking out of something to, like, again, why doesn't he want to marry the princess? Why? Because my guess is he prefers running around throwing these parties and
Yeah.
just living. He doesn't want to settle down. He
Yeah. Yeah.
so these parties must be like having the gold feasting, meeting all these people. Like, it must be there must be a draw to it for him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that sort of you sort of have the idea of, even if you're super wealthy, if you're not a happy person, you're not happy. And if
Yeah.
you're a happy person and you're not wealthy, you're a happy person. Money doesn't buy happiness, but also you can have money and still be very unsatisfied in your soul, still be sort of wandering and searching and unable to settle down and unable to, like,
Yeah.
really blossom a happy life for yourself. And he
Yeah.
seems to prefer that over marrying the princess.
Yeah.
So there is that sort of covetousness on his part, of the seeking, the pulling, the needing, the
Mm.
neediness of that, always needing to be the center of attention, always needing to be throwing the big parties, always needing
Mm.
to be able to wander around and not be tied down and have his freedom and not
Mm.
sort of compromise for a marriage. Uh,
Mm.
Somebody who is at least interested in him.
Yeah.
Hard to say if she, again, if she is a bit covetous, maybe not the best match for a happy life. But
But
there's
either
not
way,
much
yeah, the
detail.
yeah,
Yeah.
the structure seems to say that so the story starts off at a turning point in their lives. They've kind of presumably it's kind of the end of youth.
Mm.
And it's like, what are you going to do now? They end up getting paid or getting some gift, some providence from life and deciding to settle down and go on with the next stage of life.
Hmm.
Whereas he seems like in a way roaming around And feasting is like he's kind of continuing to be a soldier in some way. It's like he's not going to the next stage of life. And when the opportunity, a castle, which is a protected home in a way, and a potential wife, and a position and a role in society presents itself to him, yeah, he rejects it. So yeah, in a way, yeah, he's a demonic character. He's a incomplete character. He's a character that won't mature and settle down. He
Hmm.
he yeah, the only thing, almost the only thing we know about him is he just wants a lot of feasting, and he definitely don't take no crap from nobody. But that's
Right.
not like a mature person, that's not like a well-rounded person. Like we've talked
Yeah.
about how it doesn't describe him very much in the story, and that's part of the reason I think he's demonic is he's a kind of one-dimensional, immature person.
Yeah. 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 Because there's this sort of like mistrust of the princess, even from the get go, of like she wants to marry him and he's not interested. He's like, so there's a rejection of something, of some sort of offer there. I
Mm.
mean, she says King's daughter fell madly in love with him, but he was unwilling, and that made her all the more lovesick. Yeah, so
He seems
it
so
just it just
mysterious, and
yeah,
he's
it just keeps
maybe like,
it's putting him that way. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, no, no. But I was just thinking, yeah, it's like maybe he's all about image, personality, you know, like you're saying,
Mm,
being the center of attention, having feasts, going around, being on the road. He's kind of like a, I don't know, rock star or something like that. Yeah. But either way, yeah, he won't move on to the next stage of life. He won't mature. So,
and actually, if you're, people who live like that in real life, rock star wandering around doing all that stuff, don't want to settle. Like, oftentimes there's a underlying fear of closeness and intimacy
yeah.
that they're,
Yeah.
it's causing. That's why they never can settle down, because if you settle down with somebody over time, like the sort of spiritual goal of an intimate relationship is you get to know the other person and they get to know you, and like all of your psychological stuff starts
Yeah.
coming up and you got to deal with it, and then you have this
Yeah.
container of the marriage to like work through what comes up. And if
Yeah.
he's unwilling to even look at that stuff, um, then running around and throwing parties is a really good way to distract yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah. Um, Yeah, he can't be the cool guy if he settles down. He can't
Hmm.
be just the life of the party that everybody respects. Like there's a deeper meaning of respect where people respect who you really are when they get to know you and they've seen you over time. He doesn't have that. He has just some more superficial respect of like the rich, good looking, as the story mentions, certainly athletic build kind of life of the party respect.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then, yeah, later on, he gets his respect with, like you're saying, negative emotions and violence and everything. But yeah, yeah, he doesn't want to be really human with people. When he's with people, well, he's only with his comrades. I mean, he's helpful to them, and they've been through things together and everything. But besides that, yeah, he's only with other people when he's rejecting the princess or some kind of political relationship with the king or just feasting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very superficial life he's kind of trapped himself into, and seems to prefer to
Yeah.
something with some more depth, perhaps.
Yeah, and the preferring, yeah, seems to show like an immaturity, or like you're saying, he doesn't want to, yeah, other people to see who he really is, or to be vulnerable with people and to develop real relationships and everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you feel about this story now after we've talked about do you still feel it's wrong or something?
Um, I feel no, I don't feel as bad about it when it's more of a like a cautionary tale, like our this is sort of the unpacking we did around the Fortunatus character, um, and his sort of lack of any sort of heroic
Mm.
motifs or tendencies is
Yeah. You
interesting,
know.
and the unpacking around the princess and sort of her mirroring of the covetousness, or her there's something, something off on her side as well.
Yeah.
Is makes it more of a description, almost like a Shakespeare tragedy. Like they're doomed from the start, and you know it because of these personal flaws, and we're just watching these flaws play out over the course of like 4 pages.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
and
think
and and it, and
so.
it ends in
Yeah.
tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a
What about
tragedy.
you?
It ends in ruin. I mean,
Yeah,
not everybody dies, but everybody but Fortunatus dies. So,
yeah. And as you said, he probably lives a very suspicious and terrified life, sort of stuck
yeah.
in the stuck in unsafety,
Yeah.
because he never, so that he sort of starts in this unsafe place in the woods, and has a way out of it, but then never actually returns home,
Yeah.
keeps wandering, and
That's
then
right.
ends up probably very nervous and afraid for the rest of his life that somebody is going to come and take what he took by power.
Yeah.
Just
And as
the way.
someone who loves to roam around feasting, he's now stuck in a place and he has to take responsibility. He's forced by fate almost to
Oh,
like to go on to the next stage of life, but because he didn't do it in the right way, it's like the hell version of it, you know.
yeah, yeah.
No
The
love.
that's interesting. Yeah, damn. I don't think I can top that.
Well, cool. Yeah. This is very interesting. So we'll talk to you again soon. We'll figure out maybe another story.
Yeah, I think so. Give it a little bit of time for me to figure out what's going on my end of things, but we'll stay in touch.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.